Hi, and welcome everyone. This is Varleigh with you at Lavender Sky Panther. It is Sunday, March 1st, 2026, and we are going to touch on a lot of things, kind of all things dragon tonight. The theme, just like always, just kind of comes up. I do a quick little awake meditation, kind of walking meditation, even sometimes just asking my divine team, what should we talk about? And it became rapidly clear that we're going to talk about two distinct examples. So, even though I'm going to do a little smattering covering a lot of different aspects of dragons, might hop all over the place. Like I say in the little description area, we're going to go from, ancient illuminated manuscripts all the way to modern movies. And I'm just going to kind of throw out, like I normally do in these things, sprinkle things here and there, in case there might even just be one buzzword or one little aspect that provides a nice little springboard for you to jump in and look further if you're interested, or just take this as a one-off, like, oh, didn't know that before, or I did know this and I would love to elaborate. So as always, thank you for being here, whether you're new or returning to the channel. Feel free to put anything, if it will take, if it's not being nonsensically censored, as I like to say, by this platform, which often tends to happen. If you want to make a comment in the comments area, if it'll take it, or just email me if there's an aspect about this you want to talk about or elaborate on, and I'll be happy in a future show to, bring it up if I can't, real time interact with you. And I just want to say thank you so much, Lake Superior Skywatcher and Nature Lover, for joining me in the chat. Hope it's warm where you are and you know what I mean. Hope you're all good there. Yeah, so hop in the chat too if you like, or not, up to you all if you can, make it in there. The main thing is whether you're watching this live or in the replay, I just want to wish everybody, just even before we get going, really get going, I just wish you all well, wherever you are in the here and now. And there are a lot of weird energies kind of crossing the planet right now. I don't know about you, but I've had the last 3 days, for lack of a better word, I've heard it from other people too. There's just this very like a sticky energy. And for me, that's a residual effect. We're kind of like kissing goodbye the old ways of the world, some of these oppressive systems. And I'm bringing it up because what do we have? The word draconian, wait, other way, it's mirrored, so I'm going to get this wrong a lot. The dragon, draconian energy, that word in the vocabulary, the collective vocabulary, is something very oppressive and punitive. That is what is the old system that's been controlling this planet, or trying to. And now a lot of us are waking up to it. We're onto it. We look at it. We see it. We say no more. And we're not supporting it energetically or any which way. And so that's why we're seeing some of these things released. But as they go away and fade away, there's going to be this weird in-between time, like I think we're in now, where things just feel sticky, yucky. A friend of mine who isn't necessarily awakened, and this channel is for everybody. A lot of you might know what it means to go through an awakening or great awakening. If not, you'll probably know soon if you don't already. But even people that aren't so much in it are saying too, it just felt like the word was yuck for the last few days. So if that's you, it's happening to me too. We're just, I think, going through not a rough patch, but this like little sticky patch. And, the name of the game is where, a lot of truths are being uncovered suddenly in the world. We see it with all the, quote unquote, e-files going on out there right now, and other truths coming to light. We see it in people trying to instigate wars that have no business doing that. And, and again, these are choice points now for all of us to say, no, we don't want that. We choose a new way forward. And there are other energies outside of these sticky ones that are loving and supporting of those of us who wish to see a new loving way in a new world, loving world forward. And yes, I'm one of those. So I declare that right here, right now. So I'm bringing that up, especially the word, it's funny, draconian came up because, what do we associate when we think of dragons? I'm usually not a dragon type of person. I'll just put it out there. Like, when I think of the topic, I'm intrigued by them. Some people absolutely love them and totally are in sync with it and get it and can go off and talk way better about it than what I'm going to do today. But they've just never really clicked with me. Like, again, I appreciate them. But the more that I kind of was doing this assignment, which was to gather information for this talk today, there's a lot of interesting aspects and nuances of them. And I want to share that. And before I do, I just want to say, just stop a minute and think of what they mean to you. Do you resonate with an earth dragon, a sky dragon, a water dragon, ice dragon? Would you be the type that would like a fire breathing dragon, or no fire, or one that could even breathe ice, spew ice? There are all kinds. And some of us may only really click with them like in our dreams, or, when you do a past life regression, there's no assuming that you're a person in those. Some of these past life regressions might reveal you as some other kind of being or creature, and dragons is one of them. You might be a big, massive black dragon or a red one, and no fear there, right? And I also want to say that, we look at them as like good and bad, right? Look at all the lore, and we're going to get into that later on, because most of what I'm going to talk about is probably going to be heavily based in Ireland, with the myths and lore. I'm going to touch on it a little bit, really kind of a smattering, but if I have to say we're going to be in one area, it might be Ireland a bit more than the others. And when you look at that lore, I'm going to link in a YouTube video. It's really good. I put it in my post section already, but this guy did an excellent, what I think is excellent, covering of 5 main dragon groups in Irish lore. And he goes into some other creatures too, or beings, I should say. And some of those even include like a giant, like cat-like dragon being, which is very interesting. So I recommend, I'm not going to spend time on it here or show any clips, but I put it in the post section to check it out there. But the thing is that we have dragons throughout lore. When you think of Ireland, what do we think of? The St. George myth or lore legend, where he comes through and kills all the snakes, right? Snakes is used, but it really is also snakes, drakes, dragons, coming through and clearing house of reptiles. Why? Right? Like in history, when any group comes through to try to purge out all information, burn books, documents, or whatever, clear culture of its, ancient roots, it's usually because it's deliberately being destroyed to hide ancient truths that we should know now as the human, what do I want to say, like guardians of this planet now. And anyway, I have a feeling that dragons, I absolutely believe they existed. I still think they do now in a slightly different dimension. And now as we awaken and our collective consciousness ascends, and that just means getting to a more positive way, again, choosing to have a more loving and beautiful, positive world going forward, we're going to start to be able to see deeper into some of these dimensions and see that they've, been here all along, but also that they really were here in a very physical way. I have some examples coming up where it just looks like they were house pets, going around in medieval times. We were symbiotic with them. And again, I think the lore that just shows you must slay the dragon. Look at the, all the stuff we have about a knight with the armor. I mean, that's why we have this on little armor plate. Comes in and slays that dragon and kills it. Well, why? They're killing knowledge. Because if you look at some of the etymology, and we'll get in that too, the etymology of dragon comes from something that is seeing deeper, has keen, sharp insight and knowledge and wisdoms. So really, the St. George coming through is the killing of our innate and intuitive ability to connect with an ancient knowledge. And, in a lot of cases too, these are beings depicted in other kinds of things. I'll bring it up because I don't have it in I have some things coming up. Sorry, I didn't do this. I'm going to mark this show with my usual. I have printouts instead of a PowerPoint. It is a PowerPoint, but instead of displaying on screen, I just do it the old-fashioned way to have something tactile and non-AI so much. But this is just to market this show, which is called Drinking Dragon and Stepping Stones. Okay. So the thing is that with these dragons, they probably, in all probability, were ones that were helping humanity and sharing the knowledge. And they got wiped out is what story I'm sticking to, wiped out so that we didn't have that connection, right? So that's why you have them slayed all over the place. So chances are, if history is telling us they were slayed and killed and they were our enemy and nemesis, chances are that they were our best friend and were here to help us, right? So anyway, so much lore, so much to cover. The reason why I'm bringing it up is, what's a good dragon? What's a bad dragon, right? So we have good and bad. We have massive sized ones like galaxy-sized dragons and other creation stories where they swirl around and some are creating galaxies, down to a little pocket-sized version of a dragon that's just really a tiny mini. So there's a lot of lore of all different kinds of dragons. For me, there's both, just like everything. You'll have good, you'll have bad. And that's what keeps our world moving around, right? Is that juxtaposition, that duality. That's why we're here for duality. If we weren't here for duality, we'd be back up in the higher realms where there isn't. So we come down here to quote unquote play in all of it. And whatever seeming adversity it's there. So it's a catalyst. So we have some action, so we can experience even more. Oh, and I want to say welcome to Jeanette. Thanks for hopping in here. Good to see you all. And Lake Superior Skywatcher and Skywatcher Nature Lover says she's always believed that the horse is a modern dragon. And I thank you for bringing that up, because that's the whole thing too, right? They say we're in the new Chinese calendar and year of the fire horse. And it's true, like in the UK, they talk about the water horse, right? So a figure in the water that definitely has a horse-like head. I mean, if you see a creature, or I keep saying creature, I don't mean to say creature. If I say creature, I mean creation, because creature has a very negative connotation. Creation or a being. But look at, if you saw one in one of these lakes, like even Loch Ness or wherever, you're going to know the difference between their different reports of a horse head, a pig head, a goat head, or whatever, right? So, but that's another fascinating lore, is looking into the whole water horse. And again, I'm going to refer you to the YouTube link. I'll put it in the description area below within a couple of days after this is aired. But it's also my posts right now. It's and I'll get to it in the slides. But it's five dragons in Irish myth. Some really cool stuff. And look further even into the whole myth and lore behind the water horse if you're into that. I think there's definitely a whole reason why that comes through too. Why it's called the fire horse. Maybe the fire horse is even some kind of loose translation of the fire dragon. I think it is all connected, absolutely. Anyhow, let's well, and also because we get into the hippocampus, which is another sea creature, right, with a horse, head, body, and then the serpentine tail. So at some point, it's all interrelated. Oh, and thanks, Jeanette said she's glad she could catch this live. Thank you for being here. And also, yeah, check it out. There's so many interesting things. So at the very beginning, I was saying I'm not so much a dragon person, other than I appreciate them. But now the more that I've done this, what I'm presenting in the show tonight, I just really have an extra level of appreciation. And the more that I see that they really were here on the whole, for the most part, not to work against us, but to be for us and bring wisdoms. Oh, and I was going to mention, I got myself off track. I'm going to bring it up now because I don't have the little, slide sheet for it. But in the animated series, the Avatar, and that series, the Avatar, the Last Airbender, they talk about, well, he's always kind of consulting with a spirit dragon. So again, the idea that they're here to bring us knowledge, and look at all the flags and the heraldry. And I don't want to get ahead of myself. I have little, these are like little cheat sheets to talk about things. But getting back to the title, I don't know. Well, I do know why. The reason why the whole dragon thing's coming up in the first place is I was in somebody's chat and I made a comment, and I forget whose channel, what show, otherwise I give them a shout out. But the drinking dragon, somebody said I should check into the drinking dragon. And somebody, I think the name was VJ or whatever. So should that person be catching this? Thank you. Because they said, check into the drinking dragon. I'm like, what's the drinking dragon? And it was talking about petrified rock formations. And then we're going to get into this later, but this is in the Irish Sea, called the drinking dragon. As you can see, hopefully you can see it. It looks like, the neck and the head. Sorry, I got to do this. It's always reverse for me. But that looks like the ears, and that the face is doing like a face plant into the water. And you've got this powerful neck, and then the wings, shifted back, and then the arms coming down into the water. So for me, more than just going by textbook of what we're told about some of these formations, there's going to be a lot of lore behind them. So I started looking to the Irish Sea at this, and that's coming up. And then the stepping stones part is here in the background. We're going to get to is the thing called the Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland, something new. These are two new things I had never heard of. So it just kind of came together. And then the more that I was looking at the drinking dragon, I'm like, oh my gosh, that sounds like a pub, like a British pub name. So like, no, we're not talking about a drinking of a pub. And then I looked at the stepping stones. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not a 12-step program, but it kind of was looking like that. So I do have to honor that little part of it here. Nothing against that, but I was just laughing because there was a little tongue-in-cheek humor there. But yeah, look at all the ancient pubs, of course, and it's going to be the George and the dragon and the St. Patrick or St. George or whoever and the dragon. And then we've got like the Green Dragon Tavern, or just a symbol. And then, of course, we'll get into the movies where, like Lord of the Rings, there was the Green Dragon, where they met sometimes. Then we're going to get into things like constellation. How many of you know the constellation Draco as you look up in the northern hemisphere toward the North Pole. You know, it's the shape of, you know, the head, and then it moves around. It's very distinct. It's a massive curve when you look up in the night sky. And then what's interesting is, you know, just some of the illustrations that kind of show you, you know, capturing the idea of that. Anyway, if you haven't known about it, look up and find Constellation Draco. And while you're at it, maybe find your favorite star within there. Some are brighter than others, and find out the name of it if you like. Okay, now I'm going to show a little page here too. I have one show of my sky watching, okay, from early into my sky watching. I was awakened to look up and start documenting cloaking craft. And this is probably in my playlist if you go to my channel. But anyway, over here, I call it dimension dipping because one observation looking into the sunset, this is over the skies of Miami, I saw this thing emerge, and it was pretty low in the sky. And you know what? No clouds normally form like this. So, and here's black and white, so you can just focus on the form. Now, this is a scene taken from the Hobbit movie. That's smog and flight, and that is exactly what it reminded me of. But what I meant to get to, and I just skipped over myself, was more than just going by what we're told about dragons, it's what you feel about them. And this is no exception when you're doing the sky watching. If you see something, an anomaly or something strange in the sky, which for me, I'm, you know, documenting all this cloaking craft going on, get a vibe from it. Did it feel good? Did it feel bad? Was it neutral? You know, that's what I've been doing. Now in this thing, it was coming at a distance. I say coming because it felt like it was something moving that jumped into dimension. That's why I call it dimension dipping in the title of the show. It just seemed to like kind of come materialize, right? Now I do acknowledge it could be cloaking craft that's assembling to have the form of a dragon. You know, cloaking craft can do that. It can look very aquatic like, you know, in this case, like a dragon. It's very versatile. They hint drop that in the movie Aquaman from 2018, I think it was 2019, because they were using craft, underwater craft that looked like fish. They were very bio, you know, organic like. Anyway, this thing came in. It made this form. To me, it was like the body of a dragon in the wings. It felt like dragon. And then it just like disintegrated. So it's very interesting. So I recommend that, and I'll put the link there to the show too in the description area later. But up here too is a shorts that I did, YouTube shorts, and that one is set to some music. And again, there's some kind of cloaking craft that were forming smog, if you know The Hobbit, and it looked like a raven, and there's a plane going through that looks like a black arrow, and a lot of fun. There's a triangle shape, so that's like the Lonely Mountain. Anyway, for me, that was a whole scene that totally had dragon vibes to it. But in that case, it was all cloaking craft. So anyway, there's that aspect of the dragons too, the ones in the clouds, right? Ooh, and I'm just looking that Jeanette is saying that in Australia, they have a lizard called a water dragon. I didn't know that. I'm going to look it up. Oh yeah, and Lake Superior Skywatcher Nature Lover is reminding that the hippo is a water horse. And that's so true because even in German, it's called a Nilpferd, which is a Nile horse, like horse of the Nile. So all interesting stuff. And that leads us, a good reminder to get into the etymology. So I just have some notes here. I'm not going to bore you with reading them all direct. Oh, hey, SugarSeas, welcome. Glad you're here. You're in part inspiration for this too, because I'm going to get to Giant's Causeway and North Ireland at the end of the show. Anybody, if you're not familiar with SugarSeas' channel, go check her out. I did actually post one of her shorts in the my post section that covers her amazing finds and anomalies in and around North Ireland at the Giant's Causeway. And actually, for anyone not familiar, I have my little handy dandy mug here of Ireland, a little map, and at the very top, if you see that's Ireland, let me get my little pointer. The Giant's Causeway is up here. Okay. All right. Anyhow, getting to the etymology of dragons. So ancient Greek, it's like drakon, meaning serpent, a huge sea fish or snake, derived from a verb. It looks like derkestai, to see clearly. So that's what I was talking about earlier. It's deeper insights. To see clearly is what the serpent or the dragon brings. So like extra wisdom. In Latin, they take it from the Greek drakon. And again, it's similar meanings, but they also say, huge serpent, snake, or monster. Then you get to Old Irish, and they call it, there's a few names. There's oile feist, there's feist, and there's bestia. But anyway, a lot of meanings are reptile, monster, or worm-like creature. And the Olafeist is a massive beast or monster associated with sea or lakes. And then they talk about early Irish literature having water-based monsters or worms rather than winged creatures. And I want to take a moment to talk about that. I forgot to mention, what is the difference, do you all know, between a dragon, a wyvern, or a worm? We're told in The Hobbit, in the movie, Smaug gets really ticked off if it's an insult if you call him a worm. Why? Well, a worm is one of the reptile forms it is like a dragon, but no legs or very teeny limbs and no wings, right? So it's kind of like a demotion. He took offense if you called him a worm. Now, a wyvern has 2 legs and 2 wings, like the hind legs, maybe tiny front legs. And then the dragon usually has 4 limbs and 2 wings. Now, different books, children's books, especially Wings of Fire series by Tui T. Sutherland. She has some dragon characters, and in the her books, sorry, and also, those are the books, sorry, Wings of Fire. In the front, she has different categories and classifications of dragons. Some of them have 4 sets of wings. It gets very interesting. So anyway, I think there's probably many other dragon classes that aren't even like documented, and even in lore that probably exist out there. I don't know. To me, it feels right that there's a being that has 4 wings instead of just 2. Anyhow, in Welsh, we've got the famous Welsh flag that'll come up later. I'll show a picture that has a red dragon on it. And I'm going to pronounce this probably wrong. So anybody who is from Wales, pardon me, you can correct me, but it looks like draig, so D-R-A-I-G, which means a warrior, a leader, or a king. So they kind of deviate away from the serpent and reptile meaning. That's into like warrior, leader, king. And wouldn't you say, if you have a massive dragon coming out, that kind of fits the bill. Then in Gaelic, it's dragon or baithia, and it's a large serpent or dragon-like monster inhabiting caves, and in some contexts, a thunderbolt or serpent. They link them also to mountainous water associated or a worm imagery rather than just fire breathing. So again, we get into what's water-based, what lives in a cave, what breathes fire, what doesn't. So lots of different categories of these things. In German, the etymology, we have the word Drache, and that comes from Old High German Dracho or Draco, meaning, it's kind of the same thing. That's deriving from Latin and Greek somehow, but still the translation and the meaning is more the serpent and the sea creature and all of that. In Russian, I'm not going to try to pronounce that. I didn't look up the pronunciation, but it looks like Zimjib. It's ZMBJB, it looks like in our writing. But it comes from Proto-Slavic, which that word means snake or serpent. But then they have another word that's Z-M-E-Y-A, so I don't know if it's Zmeya, and it's representing a winged, fire-breathing serpent, and also associated with the deity Velis, seen as a powerful, chaotic figure. So now that sounds to me more like the definition of the primordial god Typhon, just in the Greek mythology. So there's going to be a lot of crossovers and overlaps between Norse mythology, Greek, all the mythologies tend to have the very similar baseline story with the same basic characters with different names. Then I'll just do one more for etymology and where it kind of maybe morphed to. We have in Czech, it's tak. So that's, again, comes from the Latin or Greek to see clearly. Now there's an older word in Czech called smok, or it looks like S-M-O-K or Z-M-O-K. So to me, I think it's like smoke, which is like probably where J.R.R. Tolkien got the word smog for his dragon, because it's very close in the pronunciation. Anyway, in the Proto-Slavic, that one, they go a step further and say it's a demonic flying or poisonous creature. So that takes it a little bit, in a different direction. And it also can mean like a demonic bird or creature. So we've got the lore, we've got demons, and then we've got ones that are probably nice, and more saintly and helpful in imparting knowledge. So, it's all over the map. That's why we've got good dragon, bad dragon. We've got them all. And so it's just fascinating to see where all the lore takes it. So speaking of that, there's this channel, I think it's called Irish Myth. I'll put again, it's already in my posts. This is the thumbnail of the YouTube video. And these are books that he talks about in his video of these 5 types of dragons in the Irish history or myth and lore. And so these are just some of them. Okay, so this one looks really cool. The Celtic Australia from the Druids in the Middle Ages. So he references these. And this one caught my attention. The Golden Apples of Loch Earn. I don't know how to say it, but an Irish wonder tale. Now in this one, they're talking about golden apples and it involves a dragon. And that takes me right to the Greek mythology. There's a garden, and I can't remember the name. It begins with an H, but there's golden apples, and the gods have a several-headed hydra guarding the apple tree so that Hercules, who is working with the Olympians to overthrow the Titans, his mission was to go and steal some. And that's why Atlas is in the position he's in, because he says, here, hold this for me while he gets the apples, and then he ditches and leaves Atlas holding up the realms. So it gets very interesting. Little crossover with hydras. I talked about that actually. I meant to mention on one of my previous lives, it's called Giants and / Serpents. So in there, I get into a lot of that lore if you want to check that out or check it out on your own. Then we get into dragons and manuscripts. There's illuminated texts and ancient, manuscripts, paintings, and heraldry. So these are just a smattering. There's so many out there. The more you look at all of this, there's so many symbols. So here we have the Welsh flag, and I think this is in China. We got the different types of dragons. This is the one I was talking about. Somebody had this on a Facebook post, and they were saying that's the medieval painting that somebody has their emotional support dragon. It's like a little wink and a smile there from 1503, but you can see it's just like on a leash, just like you would have a pet, today. So they looked very domesticated. That one doesn't look like a slave dragon or something under duress. It just looks like it's hanging out. And so I think it was pretty commonplace maybe to have your own little pet dragon, and these are just other nice illustrations I wanted to include. Some seem very peaceful and very happy, very friendly. Look at this one. Whoops. That might even be like a parrot-sized, dragon up in a tree. Oh, and I like that. Sorry, I'm kind of trying to catch the chat when I can, but Jeanette's saying like Pokemon. That's true. Yeah, they're friendly little, happy little creatures, right? I don't know if those are pocket-sized, but on some level, we all, the dragon, aside from all of the lore, it just seems something very intuitively like, sure, possible, and nothing to fear necessarily. So then we get to the movies portion here. These are just some that I know of. I'm sure you know of a ton more. But movies and like TV series. So we've got Dragonheart 3, and that's this dragon here. That one's interesting because, mini spoiler alert, that one also includes teleportation. The dragon is teaching a boy in there how to teleport by hopping into the shadows of the trees from one shadow to another. And that reminds me of Lord of the Rings, where the hobbits are hiding under the roots, under the first one, the Fellowship of the Ring. They're dodging those horsemen, those like 9 wraiths coming after them. And one of the, quote unquote, bad guys, evil kings on his horse, he comes right out of a tree. So if you're looking at that scene, there's been a portal shift or something happened on the road. Hobbits hop under the roots. And then if you're looking at the trees vertical, the horse just comes out of nowhere. If you look on the other side, there's no back end of the horse. So it just stepped through a portal. So they're showing us in the movies, little big hint drops there. So anyway, they show you interesting thing there in Dragonheart 3. I haven't seen all the movies. I don't know if they're up to number 5 or what they are. They're all very different in character. I just happen to catch this one. We have the Mandalorian up here. And in that one, you have the Krayt dragon, Krayt. That's the front of it. It's almost like Jaws, but like coming out of this cave. And here's a little, here, I've got to hold it up. Sorry. Here's a better view. It's got multiple legs. It's a massive thing. Then we have, jumping out over here, but here's the Hobbit. That's the poster art up here for the Hobbit. And that's the Smog, is the reddish dragon. And the Lonely Mountain over the Hoard of Gold. Then we have Aragon here. And we have this bluish, sapphire-like dragon. We have How to Train Your Dragon, the animated series with Toothless is the black dragon in that one. So yeah, lots of movies, it's never gone away. If anything, picked up more and more how there are dragons, right? So we haven't lost it in our culture. It's here pervasive now more than ever. So now we're going to go to our petrified dragons. And I want to highlight a couple of YouTube creators, actually, I think 3 coming up. Very interesting things are going on. So there's a guy called Markley Civic Duty somewhere in Georgia. And he is walking in the forests of Georgia. I'm going to hold this up for a second before I talk. Okay. Right, sorry, I'm on a different angle than this screen. Okay, so he's walking around and noticing very different geology, very different rock type in the middle of this reddish mud, clay, clay, earth and clay of Georgia, that it's kind of like this rock doesn't belong here. Okay. So the more that he's looking and starts digging, he starts to see a head. And, that's it, like a head of a dragon. And the camera work, you have to get used to his style of camera work. It would help if it were a little higher up to see what he's looking at. But if you stick with it and bear with it, you can start to pick things out and see it. So this is like, the head and the face. This is a zoom in of it. But he starts digging deeper and deeper, and I saw some artwork that just reminded me of this. This is like serpent mounds, and somebody showed like a serpent's head underneath the earth. So I just poetically wanted to put this together. But the more that I was looking and hearing him talk, I totally believe that that's a fossilized, like it got instant fossilized. And again, there's kind of a lot to history, like how do we find petrified trees and other things? They're just laying on the surface of the earth. I don't believe that it's happened over millions of years of development. I think it's pretty recent in our history. And I believe there's some kind of tech, deliberate warfare type tech, that just instantly instead of flash freezing, like flash petrified stuff. And this is, one of those cases. So anyway, I'm going to link this video in the description area. It's very interesting because he finds other things that he thinks might be like a turtle and other things in this kind of collection of this area in this woods in Georgia. Okay. Very interesting. So again, I wouldn't have found that if I weren't like, hey, let's do this topic, right? Oh, good. And people, Jeanette says, yeah, she saw the video. It looked real to her. Yeah. And SugarSeas too, agree 100%. And again, this is what like society will say, oh no, that can't be a dragon, or, oh no, this doesn't mean it is. And we're past that now. I think we all know how much false history we've been fed, and we're done with it. And now our inner truth detectors are getting stronger and stronger and stronger. The more that the veil is lifting, we're pulling that veil off. We're done. So that means just like the dragon means to see deeper, the etymology of it means to have keen insight. That's where we are now. We're each becoming that dragon, where our physical sight's going to get keener, but also our spiritual sight, our, insight, the sight within. And so we're the truth detectors. So when I look at those images of that gentleman's video, I'm going by feel as much as by visual. And it just feels like it, just like the cover for this whole show, The Drinking Dragon. Some people could say, oh, that's pareidolia. So if you know what pareidolia is, that's when we as humans try to see a face in something, or something that we can relate to as human. In a rock face, a cliff, we might see a face or something. Yeah, that's one thing going on. But when you've got the feeling behind it to match, where you're like, I feel it, that's an organic being that was petrified, then you just know it. So like on the cover, The Drinking Dragon, I think I buried it in my pile here. You see, oh, here it is. So for me, when I saw this, I'm like, is that just pareidolia? Do I just want to see a dragon because for shits and giggles, I want to see a dragon? No, I was feeling the force of this neck plunging down into the water, and the wing, the movement coming back, and a leg going down. It was more than just we're looking at a picture and some geologist saying, oh, this is 50 million years old or whatever. No, again, I don't think we can take any time reference that we've been told about some of these geological formations as fact anymore, because I believe they're much newer. I'm talking about, tips of volcanic islands and everything else. I don't think we're dealing in the realms of millions. I think if anything, it's 100,000, maybe a couple 100,000, right? Anyhow, speaking of that, though, and looking at dragons and petrified things, there's another site, YouTuber, that I'm sure a lot of you already have maybe heard of, even if you haven't looked around on the YouTube, is Roger over at Mud Fossil University. And I want to bring this up because he has an eye that finds biological things in a lot of the petrified rocks. Like he'll pick one up and say, well, this is like a hair follicle, or this is part of an organ. He sees other things in the rocks, which I think he has some very valid points in a lot of his stuff. Now, he has two findings, which I guess I'll cover this one first. He is looking at lore and looking at Greek mythology where we have battles of the giants. We have battles of the primordial gods who were supposedly so huge that when they walked, their heads like scraped the sky, scraped stars, etc. So they were massive. So in the Greek mythology, and I covered on a few shows back, we have the figure Typhon. Typhon is born of Gaia. Gaia mating with Tartarus to create this multi-headed serpent-like, dragon-like thing. Okay, so Roger over there was coming up with this. So he's showing, zooming out on a view of North America. Here's Florida down here. He's talking about in Mexico and other places, they have the lore of the Quetzalcoatl, which is like a feather serpent-like dragon. So here he's saying, yes, they were literally talking about these things, these massive serpents. And I think he's onto something, because this would be the snout, that's the eye, and that's the head and cheek going back. And then you have the body curving. I mean, it would be massive. The body curving to the tail back there, and the wing could be here or up here. I don't know if you see it, but I do. And he's like spitting out a kind of a poison or a liquid. And so again, that's the head, and then the massive, massive body going up North America. I believe that's absolutely possible. Oh, thanks. You guys are saying, yeah, absolutely possible, right? And there's better ways. I meant to do like a sketch overlay, but I totally see it. And it's interesting because it's like, yeah, all this lore, these people aren't just nuts. They're not like drinking whatever you would drink way back then when they're talking about this stuff. I mean, any more than we would now be like, yeah, there's this huge dragon and writing it down. Their societies would work the same way. Like you wouldn't just fabricate all this. And to the extent that it's worldwide, people have similar tales, right? Now we go over to, Roger over there was also talking about the giant dragon and fish in Africa. And again, we take a zoom out. This is the north reaches of Africa. You'd have Spain over here. And here we have, and I'll show you better examples. I'm going to zoom in and show you better examples. But he's claiming that this is the snout and the face. And again, I'll show you really better examples of a huge dragon. And his tail curves around here. And that would be Typhon and Aries. Aries turning into a big fish. And then the mouth is holding onto the top of the fin, and he's expelling some venom there. And the more that you look at where these things, where the lore is, and where they're located, and now that we have better seeing equipment with our digital stuff and our supposed satellite imagery, all of these types of things are starting to help support us and back things and help us see some of the claims of these lore. Now, also over here off of Spain, I'm going to get to it too, another YouTuber. Her name is Gaia Mud Fossil, I think, and I have a link for that too. She's taking it also building upon what Roger's finding. And she went in to get, and I have a YouTube video I'll link below. She's looking at the ancient maps of the world, wherever they have placed a sea monster. And then she's looking under, and under here, it looks like the shape of a sea creature where she found it correlated on her map study. So I'll show that too. But anyway, back to this one. We'll zoom in. But definitely another huge sized dragon. Also, when you look in mythology where it talks about where these things were, it even talks about Atlas off of the west of Africa. That's where he was holding up the realms. So anyway, we get into all this stuff that it does all relate when we track with the lore and the maps and some of these images we're seeing. So anyway, here's more zooming in so you can see it a little better. So this other YouTuber, she built on Roger's work, and then she just, laid in a graphic dragon to kind of better show you. And then she put in the dragon and the fish just to better illustrate what he's seeing. I think she just grabbed this from How to Train Your Dragon. I think that's Hook Fang for anyone who knows that cartoon, that animated series. So now we're going to zoom in on the face.